What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Koop'd podcast, the podcast that has played maybe too much Pokemon the last couple days. Maybe. Slight possibility. As always, folks, my name is Koopa, and each week I sit down with one of my friends and we talk about all the happenings of pop culture and everything nerdy in between. And folks, we got a treat for you guys today. If you're a fighting game fan, it's been a big week for us. It's been quite the week. My bingo board is in shambles right now, but I couldn't go at this alone. I had to bring in the big guns, a big get. Somebody with over 20,000 followers on Twitter. My God.
How did that happen, bro?
Yeah. I think a lot of us are asking the same question. You recognize the voice. He is a Pokemon caster, smasher / rapper. Did I get that out of order? I think I did.
Yeah, it's all right, man. It's all right. You were close.
I tried. I worked 8 hours today. I'm falling asleep at the wheel here. Yeah, if you guys haven't already guessed, I brought on first-time guest, longtime friend, Max Ketchum. Max, how are you, man? Thank you so much for gracing me with your presence today. I appreciate it.
Yo, thanks for the invite, man. Great to be here. Always good time hanging out with you, of course, on or off the mic. And I'm doing pretty well. It's been a long day for me as well. Had a long night of grinding and, degeneracy, but here I am.
Yeah, when you tweeted today, it's like, I think I've lived like the most like unique life out of like most people. And I'm just like, honestly, yeah, it's pretty no contest in my end. But yeah, listen, I always like to start off these podcasts with new guests of it's basically an avenue for me having a podcast is to force my friends to tell me that they're friends with me.
Yep. So, I got you, bro. I got you with the
vouch. Big vouch.
Thanks for saving my grandma from a burning building too.
Hey, listen, man, it was hard work. I had to drop my Ferrari off at the daycare, but you know what? It was all worth it in the end. And yeah, listen, I've told the story, candidly, in a not recorded setting, but yeah, Max, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would be anything like remotely, I wouldn't be as remotely rooted in the Smash community as I was. In fact, I literally would not have, because I would have not gone to my first local if it wasn't for you, or one of my first locals.
Yeah, that is true, man. We were doing it big back at Hitbox, as big as possible in the small hallway that venue was. But yeah, Koopa came through to some of the locals that we were hosting up in North Jersey, and he lived close in the area, but like Smash was kind of dead around us, like Morris County, like super North Passaic County and West Milford where I grew up and stuff. So yeah, I guess that is kind of true. Like if there wasn't anything that close, then maybe we wouldn't have seen Koopa, or at least not for a couple more years. But hey, man, don't sell yourself short. You've made it plenty far on your own, man. I'm definitely proud of how all my sons have grown up since those days.
Thanks, man. All I've ever wanted was dad's approval, really, at the end of the day.
I'm like 11 months older than you.
I know, right? You're only like a little bit older than I am. So, listen, man, the family tree definitely, grows exponentially in these woods. No, but yeah, listen, I was a budding gamer on I just made my Smashboards account. I was looking for places to go, and lo and behold, there was a local in a strip mall, literally in a Stop and Shop.
Inside of it.
Yeah, literally. That like it feels like so great to just tell the war stories of like those early days of like Hitbox Arena, and when it really started to pop off for those like couple of years that it was there, and it was a lot of fun. And we met each other there. We got in cahoots, and then we got into bigger cahoots as we grew older and started traveling more, and obviously kind of integrating in the same social circles. And listen, I wouldn't trade those memories for the world, man. It's been great, and we're still at the ripe young age of 22, and it's gonna be a great 10 years or whatever. So however much longer we got in this thing, but yeah, it's truly.
I'm going out like Jesus, man. Once I hit 33, I'm calling it quits.
Yeah, we're just like Ash Ketchum. We're eternally 10 years old, except add a couple zeros there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, listen, like I said, there was a lot of fighting game news this past week, and usually the topics of these shows vary. I market it as a pop culture podcast, mostly just so I can talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about.
Of course,
but it was big video game stuff coming out this past week. If not for the fact that the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remix came out, which I've been eating up like fucking hotcakes. I don't know if you've delved much into if you bought the remakes or not, but I bought them, and I'm honestly having a really good time with them. So
I have not. I don't know. Maybe I'll get around to it. Gen 4 wasn't my favorite, even though I was still young when it came out. I don't know. Just didn't leave as much of an impression on me as other people my age. But black and white remakes, I'm waiting for those.
you
That's what
know,
I'm holding out for.
it's funny. Mutual friend and friend of the show, Eric Gordon, literally said the same thing to me verbatim, where he was like, "I'm excited for the Gen 4 remakes because it just like expedites the process of me getting a Gen 5 remake at some point."
Facts.
But yeah, like I hold this game in high regard. This is the first Pokemon game. Like Diamond was the first Pokemon game I bought with my own money. And I
Mm.
remember playing the game for 7 hours straight and not getting off the couch in my room until I realized it was like the sun was going down and I needed to eat. And my mom was like, "Are you all right?" And
Wow.
I'm like, "Nah, I just caught Krogunk. Look at this guy. He's cool." Like, "Mom, I caught a frog." It's like,
Those were the days, man. Back when you could just crack out on Pokemon and lose track of time and stuff. And I mean, I'm glad the remakes are out because people like you who are attached to that generation, especially, you get to relive that.
yeah, no, I've been having a good time. It's not perfect. I do wish it was more like Platinum than it was like Diamond and Pearl, but
Mm.
I digress. Shout outs to the Grand Underground because otherwise my enjoyment of this game would probably be a lot worse. But I'll save that for another podcast. Instead, we are here to talk about the fun stuff, which is the things that we're both qualified to talk about, which is fighting games.
Hmm.
And I've always been curious, and I feel like I've probably asked you this in the past, but I don't remember. Do you remember the first tournament you ever went to for a competitive Super Smash Brothers thing or anything of that nature?
I do, bro. I absolutely remember my first tournament. It's pretty hard to forget, though. Based on the events that occurred, my friend had a seizure there. Nobody knew he was epileptic, not even himself. And we had to leave in like the span of an hour to go to the hospital. We didn't even get our venue feedback when we came back to the venue.
That's right.
But
I do remember you telling me this now. Now that it's all starting to come back to
yeah,
me.
yep. It was at a Toy Wiz that would later become the hosting site for a revival of Melee. So pretty
Oh
storied
wow.
history in that building. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, and that's dope. And I'm curious because we're around the same age, obviously, but you definitely got your start a lot sooner than I did. What got you like feet first into the competitive community? Like, what was your documentary? If there's because I'm a doc kid, and I will I'll say that unapologetically. That's what definitely sparked my interest. But I'm curious, what drove you to go out and start competing?
Yeah, no shame in being a dot kid. I mean, I was like really the first mainstream media that Smash ever got, I would say. And even then, it feels strange to call that mainstream since it was just a YouTube video,
Yeah,
but
right.
or a series of them. But yeah, I mean, big shout outs to Samox for the doc. Did so much for the scene.
Oh
For
yeah.
me, I mean, Game Facts was where I found the competitive scene in 2003. I was just like a regular old third or fourth grader trying to raise my chow in Sonic Adventure 2. And
Yes.
one of my classmates, who was like my best friend, he had an older brother. He was 4 years older than us. And as such, he was a little more like in tune with the internet and gaming and all that. He was like a super nerd gamer as well, and we kind of all like revered him as the god gamer. So one day I was like, "Hey, dude, like, I want to find out more about raising Chow or whatever. Like, what do I do?" He's like, "Oh, you just go on the site Game Facts that like he spent his whole life on." Um, and I went there, and under like the top message boards for the GameCube were Sonic Adventure 2 Battle in second place, and then in first is Melee. And I was like, oh, I also love Melee, and like I play this with my friends all the time, right? But we weren't serious like that. Like I think we didn't really even like playing with items, and we were a little bit competitive, but um, we had no idea what was out there. So after I looked up stuff for raising Chow, I went over to the Melee board and I saw stuff like power rankings and like advanced tech glossaries and all this stuff. And this is like 2003, 2004, so
Yeah.
it was still pretty primitive, but I saw the names of players like Azen, Chudat, Chillin, Ken, like, there was like a list because I kind of kept up with it. I kept going back on the board like every couple months or like every couple weeks and just seeing like what was getting posted and how it was developing. I read some guides on like, you know, how to play characters or do certain things like wave dashing. I was trying to do it over and over again, like not really getting it. This is before YouTube existed, so
Right.
like
Yeah.
I couldn't just watch people play. So I got into that for a little bit. I started like whipping all my friends' asses once I realized what was good at the game, but then I fell off of it super hard and like The only way to watch footage was to use this program called DC to download videos that people
Oh
recorded on
yeah. Oh my
VCRs.
god.
Yeah, and my computer wasn't good enough to run DC or even like Toontown. You know, like I couldn't do
Yeah.
shit on this computer. Literally, like I tried to play Toontown with the same friend whose brother got me into competitive Smash, but I couldn't do it. So I fell off for a couple years because my friends didn't really want to play with me as much anymore either. And then when Brawl was about to come out in like mid to late 2007, I started following Melee again. And this is now like right off the heels of the MLG era, like the rise of PC Chris, the rise of Mewtwo King. You know, the
Right.
scene starting to like kind of go somewhere in terms of like support from stuff like MLG and not just ultra grassroots. And then I saw there was like a tournament listings section on Smashboards, which I found also through GameFAQs. My first account I made like way back in '04, but forgot the password, made a new one. And I was like, all right, let me go to the closest tournament. And it was at that Toy Wiz in Nanuet, New York, which isn't even really that close to us. But that like speaks to
Right.
how different the scene was, right? Like the closest tournament was an hour away on a Saturday, and like that was the only one you were going to get in that area for a long ass time. Now there's a weekly every day of the week in like every single state.
Yeah. No, that honestly, that's such a great story, and I shuddered a little bit when I thought back to Game Facts because trying to look up any sort of guides for stuff like before the age of YouTube was like trying to read Pig Latin. I vividly
Yeah,
remember one of my first experiences looking up stuff for Game Facts was I was playing through Twilight Princess and I was in the ice dungeon and I was at that point where you need to like push the blocks along the floor to like get like the slide puzzle to work to like advance further in that game, and like
mm,
I got so stuck. I was like, I don't know what to do. None of my friends are playing this game. I can't watch G4 because they're too busy. Like they're not going to talk about Twilight Princess like a year and a half after the fact. So I can't like
right.
look at any of that stuff. So I went on GameFAQs and like someone like broke. It was like watching someone like code something. And it was like they
Yeah,
broke it down like frame by frame. It was like making pictures of the blocks with like brackets and like italics and wingdings on the keyboard, and I'm just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. This is real. This
yeah.
is incredible, and
People got really creative with the way they had to write guides in all text.
yeah, I'll never forget like one of the when I discovered what like the cheat codes website was, and like I had to like take a piece of paper and like take it out of my CD case to like get infinite money in GTA or like
Right.
like I can't remember most phone numbers, but I remember the button sequence to like get a suit of armor or a jetpack in San Andreas because this is the way that my brain works, unfortunately. But honestly, it really speaks to also just like how like you mentioned, the Smashing is really just blown up like exponentially, like even in an era past a documentary, with outlets like ESPN and all the and esports really becoming more and more into the forefront. I remember that I'm even old enough to where not every local even had like a stream. Like if you had a stream at your
Yeah.
local, it was a luxury. It's like like your parents drove a Ferrari and they had like a wine had like a wine locker in their house. Like you were that kid if your stream had a
Yeah.
local, like or if your local had a stream. It was nuts. Like and now, like you said, everybody's got an Elgato and like Audio Technica headsets, and everything is just like advanced like so exponentially that I'm terrified of what like tournaments are going to look like in like maybe like not even like 5 years, even like 2 or 3 years. Like I'm terrified.
Yeah, bro, we're gonna be doing like holographic battles like Yu-Gi-Oh! You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna bring my dual disc and shit, and my character's gonna like materialize out of the
Yeah,
floor.
it's like, yo man, if you two
Or turn
if you two stock me, I'm going to jump off the castle. Like
yeah. Tournaments in VR and all that. Like, I don't know, man. But yeah, it is really cool to see how the scene has grown. Like, I mean, bro, back when I started, like majors didn't have streams.
yeah.
Streaming just was not a thing that was accessible to anybody really. I still remember the first tournament I went to that had one, which is actually how I kind of got started on the commentary path. There was just a shoddy $20 Logitech desk mic and a laptop, and it was on Ustream.
Oh man.
And like there was no Twitch, there wasn't even Justin back then. It was just Ustream, and I hopped on and I started doing like a radio voice and shit. I was 15 years old, and like I saw people in the chat saying like, "Who's this 40-year-old man on commentary? Like what's going on here?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, like maybe I'm not the guy for this." Or like maybe I gotta just come out of my shell and stop pretending to sound like a boss or something. But yeah, that was January '09. So
Wow.
like, a year and change after I had first gone to tournaments was the first time I actually saw a stream at one.
No, that's incredible. Yeah, Hitbox is my first exposure to that, and even then, like, that was a pretty like advanced setup for like most of
Yeah.
the places that I went to, and I'd go to other locals where like people are daisy chaining together Turtle Beach headsets into like it was like God, it was like looking back on some of those setups, I'm like, part of me kind of misses the poverty. Like I like a good poverty setup, but like it's one of those things where it's like
Right.
you look at where things have gone now, and it's just like, man, like how did we even
It's hard to go
yeah,
back.
it's hard. Like, how did we work under these conditions? It was like absolutely insane. Oh man, but I love that. And like you said, the where things are going to be going in the future, who knows? And we got a pretty big peek into some big news stories, these last couple of weeks. And one of them being the explosion of the platform fighter, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about because you are,
Hmm.
at your core, I go back to that famous Awada quote where it's like on my business card, I'm a president. In my head, I'm a game developer, but in my heart, I'm a gamer. And Max, there's only one gamer I know, like at its core, and it's you. Because not only are you a at the top of your craft as a commentator, you're pretty good at all the games that you play too, and you've played like a plethora of not just platform fighters, but you're big in to Marvel, you're big in other fighting games as well as things like Pokemon, and now you're on the Nick Brawl craze. So with all these new IPs kind of jumping into the fighting game space, I was like, yeah, Max has to be the guy I talk to here. Best April O'Neil in this call right now, and
Second best in the world, I would say. The best one, Bodidi, he is definitely a cut above me. I just played him in tournament and in like a 5 hour session afterward. We put it all on YouTube too. It was
I
killer.
watched I
But
watched I watched some of that during my a stretch of insomnia last night. I was like, yo, these guys are sick, man. Nick is such a sick game. But yeah, so I figured obviously, the two big things that come out of this past week is the official announcement of the Warner Brothers platform fighter Multiversus, which is such a hard name. I think that's such a
it
that
is. I
that is
love it.
such a good name. I'm just like, oh my god, like this is phenomenal. Give that guy a raise. You know,
Yeah. Whoever came up with that one is the Chad for
yeah, that
sure.
guy that guy woke up in the middle of the night and he's like, I got it. This is it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that game is a 2v2 platform fighter, free to play. I forget the name of the team that is that's like the head team behind that. Like
I think it's NetherRealm who makes Mortal
that's
Kombat.
what. Okay, yep, there we go. So that was a big piece of news to come out of last week, and then fast forward maybe a few days later, we get the first look at Riot's Project L, which was announced I think almost
Yeah.
2 years ago, I think, or something like that. It was like
It's been a hot minute, dude. I think it was 2 years
yeah, it
ago.
was it
Yeah.
was at whatever the last offline Evo was, which would have been 2019. Riot announced it's like, oh hey, we're working on a fighting game, and everybody lost their shit for obvious reasons because it's League of Legends, and anything they touch IP wise just turns to gold. Arcane, great show by the way. I know nothing about League, very casually, but that everything that Riot seems to touch just seems to turn to gold. And then they showed a first look of what the game looks like. It is a 2D assist-based fighter featuring League of Legends champions, and yeah, this is huge stuff. So I'll get you. I was curious of your take on just like how you feel about these games on a surface, and like just this kind of like weird surreal world we're living in right now, where like all these major studios are just taking their IPs, and it's like, what if we turn them into Street Fighter, or what if we turn them into Smash Brothers? Like, where's your head at with all this stuff?
I really just love fighting games in general. So any IP that I like, I would love to see, fighting gamified. I think, just in terms of the two that you mentioned, I'm much more excited for Project L and Multiverses, and I'll explain why. Um, Project L is going to scratch the Marvel itch for me and a lot of people that has not been scratched in a long time. Like Marvel 3, that came out 10 years ago, and that game just like it rocked a lot of people's worlds. It felt like the successor to Marvel 2 that was deserved. Some of the older generation maybe didn't love it as much as Marvel 2, but it felt so good, man. Like that, I mained that game for a while in the like later years of Brawl when the game was kind of dying a little bit. I switched to Marvel and had a great time with it. And then Marvel Infinite came out in 2017, and it just didn't hit the same. You know
Oh
what
my
I'm
god, it's
saying?
been
And I
that
think,
long since the game came out. Jesus.
yeah, it's been
Wow,
four
that's
years,
crazy.
and Marvel Infinite was, basically just like a flash in the pan compared to the two games before it. Played a lot differently, of course. It was like the active tag switch instead of assists, and it's 2v2 instead of 3v3. And I believe both of those are true about Project L as well. Like it has the active tag and it's 2v2, but it also has traditional assists as well. So that's pretty cool. It's like the best of the old and new Marvel games. I could be wrong that it has active switch, so don't quote me on that, guys. I didn't watch the trailer like crazy or
Right?
anything,
Yeah.
but I've never played League in my entire life, but I do play a lot of TFT. And I played all 6 seasons like pretty hardcore. Um, so I know a lot of characters now, and like I've come to love them and just like appreciate what they do, and kind of like oh, I get that reference. You know what I'm saying when I see them do a certain move.
Sure. Right.
So yeah, I'm really stoked for Project L. Multiverses, on the other hand, like it looks cool. And like the characters are insane. Arya Stark, Rick
Yeah.
Sanchez, Finn, Jake, like that's
Yeah.
bonkers. But the gameplay isn't speaking to me as much. Like the reason that I'm so big into Nick is because well, even before the game came out, I saw Ludosity was making it. I love Slap City. Slap City is basically just easy melee.
Yep.
Like it's a very slip and slidey, movement heavy, combo heavy platform fighter. Like you could tell it was directly inspired by melee. Like it plays almost identically. And then Nick kind of changes the formula a little bit in some ways, but it's like melee with air dashing, right?
Yep.
Like Slap City didn't even have air dashing. And again, I love Marvel, right? I also love Guilty Gear. Air dashing is something that's right up my alley, um, and it maintains that fast combo heavy gameplay. Multiverses looks much slower, and I think people were speculating that like the footage might have been slowed down to show off the animations and stuff, but like you can just see when they're running around, like it's more like the speed of like Ultimate or Brawl or Smash 4, if not even slower. And it's 2v2 only, or like primarily focused on 2v2. Like, I think that's really cool. I love doubles in Smash, but it's kind of risky for like a main format, though there is going to be singles as well. So I don't know. Multiverses, like the roster and the polish of the game are really speaking to me, but not the gameplay. So I'll try it, and I'm sure it's going to have like developer support or something, and there's going to be like good incentive to get good at it at the beginning. But like, um, Project L is definitely the one that's mainly on my radar out of those two.
Yeah, no, I echo a lot of the same sentiments that you have. And again, I just want to also preach it to heavens that Nick All Stars is a fantastic game. As some,
It's
yeah,
so
like
good.
as a child of a certain era, I've grown to love Nickelodeon, with all of my heart. And the game's a lot of fun. I love to play it when I'm just doing busy work, uh, and all that fun stuff. And it's a great game, like you mentioned. I played very little of Slap City, but the bit that I played, I really really liked it. So when I saw that those are the guys behind Nick Allstars, I was like, oh, sign me up, day one. I'm both feet in. I'm
Mm.
excited. Uh, and I felt a lot of that way when I saw the multiverse of stuff because like I grew up watching like a lot of like most kids do. Like I watched Looney Tunes a lot when I was a kid. I have a lot of great memories of my young adult years watching Adventure Time and obviously Rick and Morty. And just again, like you mentioned, like just like the IP roster there is so unique and strange that it can go in a lot of different directions. And like the fact that you can have Kevin Conroy, they bring back all these like big voice actors to voice characters that people love. Like Tara Price is voicing Harley Quinn. She's I believe the voice of Timmy Turner, and
Tara
yeah,
Strong,
Tara
yeah.
Strong. That's what it was. So and Matthew Lillard voicing Shaggy, which is hilarious, which
Yeah,
is
dude.
awesome. I also like kind of forgot this, but Matthew Lillard's been the voice of Shaggy since like 2009 and like the animated stuff. So like, I it's just one of those things where it's like you can tell that the devs like give a shit about like we want to bring the most authentic version of these characters as we can to you. And I'm with you where the roster looks sick. I'm cool with that, but again, like you even said, the gameplay, it's like I hope that they were just slowing it down, just to, like really show off, just like the depth of the game. But it did, it definitely looked a lot slower, in action. And also, they mentioned that there isn't like I guess there isn't like an HP system or something like that. They mentioned something about there's like no like I forget exactly what the verbiage was, but it made it sound like there isn't a percent bar, which is strange, and I'm curious how that's gonna actually like play out. But
Mhm.
I'm at least interested. Free to play is appealing. Hopefully, that doesn't mean the game. When you hear free to play, my mind immediately goes to cheap. And the game did not look cheap. Everything looked, very nice. I'm curious how the 1v1 and the non team based stuff is going to play out in that regard. And again, just from an IP standpoint, I'm incredibly interested in that. So I'll most likely be checking it out. And Project L, I'm like cautiously optimistic about. I've always been terrible at traditional fighters. Like as much as I love games like Marvel 2. Marvel 2 was the first fighting game I ever played. I have vivid memories of playing an arcade cabinet in a movie theater right by my house. Every time I went to the theater, my mom would give me like
Mhm.
$5 and she let me go ham for like an hour or two. Uh, but I for some reason my brain is just I've never sat down and like really dedicated myself to a traditional fighting game, for long enough to where like my brain can get it. Um, and so it's one of those things where I've always admired Marvel as like a spectator sport. It's easily my favorite fighting game to watch in action. It's absolutely incredible at high level. And again, I missed also a lot of that when Infinite came out. It just felt so it just didn't hit the same for those obvious reasons. But
Yeah,
I'm like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about how this game plays and how it looks. I think they got two great people. Running. I actually heard this in a Maximilian dude video, but I think Tony Cannon like was one of the guys that helped invent rollback netcode. I think.
that is correct. Yeah, GGPO is the client. Yeah, Tom and Tony are like mainstay. They're the founders
Yeah,
of
right.
Evo.
That's what it was too.
So
So
like you you
yeah,
couldn't pick two better people, I think, to be spearheading what might be the most impactful fighting game release ever. Like I think this whole discussion about like platform fighters and IP and stuff is a huge
yep,
topic, right? Like we've all seen Smash kind of flounder as an esport, really just on the backs of the competitive community with no support from Nintendo. And everyone's been saying for years, well, you know what? Like, what if we made a game that was like Smash with equally iconic IP or like comparably iconic IP? Now we're kind of seeing that come to fruition. I think the writing has been on the wall for a long time, and a lot of these companies are starting to see it. The first one was
yep,
Nickelodeon, right? Like we've seen Icons, Rivals of Aether, Rushdown Revolt all kind of struggle to get traction because even though the games are like just as fun or in some cases even like better mechanics, more polished mechanics than the Smash games, like people play Smash because they love Mario and they love Pikachu
yep,
and all that. And even like the most casual audience is brought in by stuff like that. So, you add SpongeBob into the mix and like, okay, like, now we've got something that can kind of rival that. I think Nintendo still is bigger, especially globally than Nick, but um and then, Nick of course has its own
sure,
faults, right? Like that polish we were talking about the multiverses has, there's no voice acting at all, let alone the original guys. Um there's, a lack of music and alternate costumes, all of which, by the way, is fixed up by mods, which are so easy to do on PC. Like it's literally one click and you can install like a whole bunch of stuff. Um, you have like every mod available to you at your fingertips that people have created. It's all like housed in one app. So just, for any of my Nick players out there who are watching this and like, oh yeah, I wish I had voice acting or costumes or music, whatever. I've been going ham with the mods. It's super easy, and I'm like a complete dipshit when it comes to computers. So trust me on that. Um, but then yeah, we see the Warner Brothers
hmm
game, Multiverses, including all of that stuff, and that caused like a big stir, and it also kind of felt like responsive to
yeah,
Nickelodeon, right? Even Thaddeus Cruz went on and said like, "Wow, it's so cool that they got voice acting and blah blah blah." Like, yeah. I think Nick would have popped a lot more with that, but we're going to see multiverses have that. And also, if my hypothesis about the gameplay being a little slower and less exciting than Nick is true, I think we'll really see the competing philosophies go up against each other, right? Like, is it just like the IP and polish that will carry this game to be bigger, or will Nick's gameplay eventually prevail and just like, well, there's a lot of staying power in this game. Like at 2 months in, nobody cares what it
yeah,
looks like anymore, like what the voices are on the characters. We just want to watch good
yeah,
matches. But then Project
yeah,
L, that looks like it's
yeah,
got everything. Riot does not disappoint. They only are in the business of making incredibly popular and successful games. Again, they know where to look, right? Like they have the cannons on board, and the cannons know everybody in the FGC. So much like how Combo Fiend worked on Marvel, we could see the Cannon brothers bring in, Justin Wong and Daigo and stuff as playtesters for Project L, and really make sure that the game has polish and like smartly made mechanics and all that. And of course, the IP from League is now at this point, 12 years of establishing themselves as one of the most popular franchises. I think if you drop Project L in 2012, it would not have made a splash.
Exactly.
But now, especially with stuff like Arcane, everybody now knows characters like Vi and Jinx and like Darius, Katarina. Like these are household name characters now. And soon enough, a couple more years down the line, the gap between how long Mario's been out and how long League has been out is going to shrink, right? Like, obviously Mario's been out since the 80s and League came out almost in 2010, but in 2050, like, is that gap going to matter anymore? I don't think so. So I don't know. It's just a really cool time for the genre, fighters and platform fighters alike. And I am glad that people are now starting to kind of bring the fire to Nintendo's feet, because it's unacceptable the way that they kind of just left Smash high and dry for so long. But now you see it. I see it
Yeah,
on our topic sheet, bro. The next topic, like they're clearly
yeah,
responding at this point.
we'll jump on that in a second. But I listen. If this is the dick measuring contest we're setting ourselves up for with other IPs, it's like, oh well, my game has iconic characters that might look a little scuffed around the edges, but my game also has iconic characters, and it's a little bit more polished, and it has a little bit more, like you said, the gameplay's a little bit, more, in depth. So it's gonna, like you said, the dueling philosophies of like what the people really want is going to be very, very interesting, to see. And we're kind of seeing the seeds of that right now. Like you mentioned, I remember when that initial Reddit post came out about multiverses, and the person that was talking about information about the game even mentions is that it's been an open industry secret that Nintendo doesn't has had a real stepdad relationship with the competitive community,
Yep.
and other companies are hungry to jump on those people that are like, I just want to play a Smash like game, or a fighting game with iconic characters that has dev support, that will embrace the competitive side of their community. And like you even said with things like Icons and Rivals of Aether, like you said, those games are great, those games are a lot of fun, but I've said this about other fighting games too, like if I can't get invested in the characters, I'm not going to go out of my way to play it, which is why I think I've always liked games like like Marvel and Smash more than I've liked games like
Mm-hmm.
like games like Guilty Gear, uh or like Melty Blood, games like that. Like if you can easily point me to the direction of Iron Man, and I can tell you about who Iron Man is. If you throw a dart
Right.
at any character in like an anime fighter, like a really obscure anime fighter, I'm not going to know who the hell they are. I'm not going to be able to like
Exactly.
that is such, at the foundation is so important. And like you said, if this is where we're setting ourselves up, where companies and game developers are going to try to go with their fighting games, I'm all on board for it. Like you said, with the way that Nintendo has handled things in the past for the time being. I do want to just point this out though. Max, this is eventually, I'm going to plant the seeds right here. This is eventually set us up for that eventual Disney platform fighter. Is that happening? Is it going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually am pretty confident that they'll want to stick their toes in the pool at the very least. I mean, they have so many characters at their disposal. They
Yeah,
own Marvel
let
now,
me just
right?
paint a
Like,
picture for you. Like, because I remember when, again, going back to that Reddit post when Multiversus leaked, somebody mentioned that there's like an even bigger company, like a even finaler boss that is making a platform fighter,
oh,
or that might dip their toes into it. And like Warner Brothers by itself is already a pretty big IP company. Like, if you watch Space Jam: A New Legacy, it's literally just an advertisement for
mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers. Um,
Yeah, I mean, Rick and Morty showing up in
yeah.
Space Jam was not something I had on the
No.
bingo card to bring me
No,
back
no,
to
not at
that. Yeah.
all. So that IP is already big enough on its own. The only IP that's media company conglomerate that's bigger than that is Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. You could have a Disney platform fighter that can feature these four characters just as a surface: Mickey Mouse, Iron Man, Darth Vader, and Homer Simpson. Like, Come on,
Yeah.
the possibilities are truly endless. So if
Yep.
if we're in the age of the Smash clone within like big AAA companies, and it doesn't end with a Disney Fantasia whatever platform fighter, like I'm going to be sorely disappointed. When I'm like 35 years old and can't play this game or whatever. Like,
I would also be kind of bummed if they don't end up doing it. I mean, like the door is kind of wide
yeah,
open for them right now. I don't know what took these companies this long to do it, but it does make sense. Like, Smash didn't really have its time in the limelight until about 2014. I think the E3 Invitational really helped catapult the scene into new heights. Like that, the documentary, the return to MLG and Evo, like all that stuff combined. And if you think about development timelines, I guess it makes sense. And now, like 7 years later, we're starting to see everybody else enter the fray. Oh, and speaking of that, there's also going to be fray makers from the makers of Super
yes,
Smash Flash coming
I
out.
completely forgot about that. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, I was really hyped for that before I heard about Nick. But I think, frame makers might fall victim to the same kind of like Rivals of Aether syndrome, where if you're running with more obscure IPs, which I don't believe frame makers has. I think they actually do have other like cool, notable characters. But like now the firepower, the arms race has accelerated so far. It's like, how are you going to compete with
Yeah.
Arya Stark, right? How are you going to compete with Rick? How are you going to compete with SpongeBob? How are you going to compete with Vi
Yeah.
and Jinx, right? Like these are all extremely solid household names at this point, across generations in some cases. So yeah, Disney, I think, really would be like the last step in this chain of everybody dropping a platform fighter. Again, really where I'm at is just that I hope they're all
Yeah.
good. Like, we saw for a lot of the indie ones that Melee is
Yep.
kind of the blueprint, right? Like Rivals of Aether has wave dashing and like, that kind of movement and combos and all that. Icons basically was a Melee clone. Now it's Rushdown Revolt, and it adds in that air dashing element, not quite the same way that Nick or Guilty Gear would, but like, there is the rush button, right, that lets you chase them deep and all that stuff. So uh, I hope that if we saw a Disney game, it kind of played like that, like Nickelodeon, like Slap City, where it's like a very accessible version of the high intensity platform fighter. I kind of think that the Brawl Smash 4 Ultimate formula is
Yep.
failing. Um, like you don't want to have to play neutral 12 times a stock. Like it's just not
I
fun to
played
watch.
Sonic. I never played
Like
neutral.
that
What are you
said,
talking about?
well, that said, I think Ultimate is in a great spot as a spectator sport and as a competitive game. Like to enter, the scene is not incredibly
Nope.
difficult, right? Like it's an easy game to pick up. Um, but I don't know. Like I feel like at its peaks, Melee's always had the best viewership of the Smash games, right? Because the matches are so crazy and like anything can happen at any time. It's just like the gloves are off and um, I think, had we seen Nickelodeon take that major, like, polished game approach, they'd be in an incredible
Oh
spot
yeah.
right now, right? But, Multiverses looks like they're not going to take the crackhead game approach. So maybe Disney will, and they'll have the polish associated with it. So, like, I just want to see, one game that puts, like, the mechanics and the aesthetics together in their best form. And I think, like, that's kind of like the true spiritual successor to Melee that people have never gotten. Like they're Melee players still play Melee even with Nick out. Like the incentive to swap games just isn't
Yeah.
high enough for them right now. But I think there could be a game that hits both of those niches.
Imagine a world where there's a Disney platform fighter and they can't get Sora. Like that'd be so. It'd be a weird fever dream, but
It would, yeah. I was thinking, like, huh, yeah. You didn't mention Sora. You said Homer Simpson, where I thought he would go.
the four horsemen of anime or something like that. I don't. We'll get there
Right.
eventually, but yeah, listen, it's an exciting time to be a fighting game fan right now. I think the possibilities are endless, not just with, people trying to captivate the audience of Smash Brothers, but also, with obviously the other big devs, doing their own things. Street Fighter is still not going anywhere. Guilty Gear is not going anywhere. All of the mainstays are going to be around for a while. So it's exciting. And,
Yep.
just how Nintendo do what Nintendo do, they don't let people share, steal the limelight away from them very often. Remember when they dropped that, Nick All-Stars Brawl drops in this day? Oh, y'all heard of Sora? You want to watch this trailer 20
Right.
times? In typical Nintendo
Right.
fashion, as everyone is talking, riding the high of, multiverses and Project L footage. I think this came out before the Project L footage. It was just in between. This is a really dope sandwich. I think is what I'm trying to get at with this one, with how the week started and book
Yeah.
ended. Nintendo and no Panda Global announced that a Nintendo partnered Smash circuit is coming in 2022. I did have the page up here initially that had the details, but Max, I'll ask you just first and foremost on a surface level, like after all we just talked about, how Nintendo hasn't, always embraced the competitive side of Super Smash Brothers. And so someone who's had blood in the ground for a long while now, like where are you feeling with this at this very moment?
Oh, it's so complicated, bro. Because like I don't know, it's just a bunch of mixed feelings. On one hand, I'm extremely happy, right? Like this is what we've wanted for so long. I'm so proud of Panda and everybody on the team for like actually making it happen. So many people have tried in the past, as we learned last year through the
Yeah,
Blur Twit longer, and like all the people kind of breaking their stories about how they tried working with Nintendo and it just for one reason or another went badly at the end of the day. Of course, we're also like 12 months almost to the date off the heels of that big
yep,
house cancellation. We were just taking L after L from Nintendo, right? It seemed like they were around when, we were graduating high school and graduating
yeah,
college that, at least literally like in my life, that kind of lined up with like the E3s for Smash 4 and Ultimate. It's like, all right, cool. Like here's this promotional event and we're going to put you guys in the spotlight. But like when it comes time to running tournaments, we're
yeah,
nowhere to be found, right? Like no pop bonuses, no production budget. I think Evo is really the only event that ever saw a dime from Nintendo. Um, so, you know, we went from like really wanting to work with them and like begging for their involvement, begging them not to shut down the stream at Evo
yep,
2013, stuff like that. Like, um, we really have gone through the ringer with them and then kind of seen like the ugly side of it, like about like, the PM stuff. Again, the big house stuff, Twitch and Red Bull circuits in the past. So like, there's definitely a lot of reason to be skeptical, and I, of course, know just as little as anybody else about like exactly what Nintendo is bringing to the table for this event, like or these events, how much they're going to be providing, what the support looks like. What we need in Smash is hundreds of thousands of
yep,
dollars in prizing, if not millions. Like we need to show that it's viable to pursue this game as a means of living, whether it's on the content side, production side, commentary, competitor, whatever you want to be, right? Like the more money that's in the scene, the more legitimate the craft is in the eyes of the public, and the more people that join, and the more life that comes to it, and the more money that circulates, even for the grassroots people to put on better events with bigger prizes, etc. So, um, you know, assuming that this is all going the way that the community at large would want it to, and Nintendo's actually putting up some big money and making Smash like a viable tier 1 esport, then this is a dream come true. And I think like the most comforting part about it for me is that it's Panda working with them. Panda is a dope organization. They're community born and bred. Like I still remember Samurai Panda doing the audio only commentary stream for Clash of the Titans 4
wow,
back in 2009. Like, he's been out here in the trenches with us guys. Like, this is a dude who like, he was
yep,
playing in late melee and early brawl, and he was a good player, and like he was really about the life. Like, yeah, he went to medical school, became a doctor, and founded an esports team, but it was to bring that money back into Smash. So I know Samurai Panda especially is legit as fuck. I know Panda Global or Panda is legit as fuck. And I'm hoping that, like when you're in the negotiation room with Nintendo, you're still driving a hard bargain and you're like, these are the demands, the needs and wants of the scene. And like, if we're doing this, we got to do it right. And I know like, Panda, very successful organization, but they don't have 7 figures of annual budgeting to
yeah,
be thrown around for these events, right? If it falls on anyone, it's Nintendo. That's the reason we've seen League grows in esport and Riot now becoming like a household name of a company in such a short time. They went the esports route. They saw there was a huge opening in the market and they blew the fuck up off of it. Nintendo,
yeah,
like they print money regardless, right? They could release the 3DS 5 and it would still be selling off the shelves instantly. So they're not in a position where they like have to make these esports endeavors work or invest heavily into them for their bottom line to really change at all. There's not a lot of incentive for them to do it, but I think there's like really a gold mine for them to be made here. Like as a company, you still want to make money. Like I think if they really went heavy into esports, they could be extremely successful just
Mhm.
because of how popular Smash and even other games like Pokemon are. Like Pokemon has a better developed esports scene than Smash, basically, but it's still not like as big and glamorous as stuff like Counter Strike or League or whatever Dota. Um, these true tier one esports. So I'm basically, as long as Nintendo isn't fucking anyone over, they're letting the events operate like they would normally. They're kind of just the backer. Then I'm very optimistic, but I don't know what it looks like, so I will withhold some optimism. That said, it's still just a massive milestone for the community. Again, super proud of everyone who made it happen, and I'm really hoping that they're like, they're staying on Nintendo's ass and like, yo, like we're gonna hire these guys to run and commentate the tournament. We're gonna do it with these rules. It's gonna look like this. It's gonna have this grassroots feel. It's not gonna be some like Disneyland sanitized bullshit. Um, then yeah, like let's go. But I don't know. And then on the melee side, there's a lot of issues too with like using Slippy and UCF on the consoles at the tournament. Like, are they kind of just going to turn a blind eye like they have with partnered events in the past? Will Nintendo ever get over their whole like we hate modding shit? I don't know. It's going to be fairly complicated, but at the very least, the fact that it's happening is very
Yeah,
exciting
no,
and
this
very
is
cool.
exactly why I wanted to bring someone on this week's episode who's, has some longevity, in the community, someone who's been around for not just the good, but also for the bad. Because for all intents and purposes,
Mm-hmm.
I joke, amongst myself and my peers that I'm an old man in the Smash community. But compared to some of the other people that I hang out with, I've got, I don't have as much blood in the dirt as someone that's been playing for as long as you have. So I'm looking at this from still some pretty fresh
Mm-hmm.
eyes where, I got introduced to the community by the E3 Invitational. I'm a little bit more accustomed to seeing, Nintendo partnered stuff. Uh but the more entrenched I got in the community as a commentator, the more I saw behind the scenes of how it hasn't always been that easy. And I think, like you mentioned, it's a huge, it's a big step in the right direction. Hopefully, you hope. You're, like you said, cautiously optimistic is a term I think a lot of people are talking about with this, because at the same time you want to be excited because it's like, is Nintendo maybe finally starting to get their wits about them, where it's like they've literally been pissing away a big moneymaker for their community, which is that, like you said, the esports side of it is
Mm-hmm.
huge. And whether that's Nintendo corporate or whoever's the one that keeps pulling the plug on that, hopefully this is a sign to them that, like, enough, important people within your company are signing on to this, to where you can really open your eyes to what this could mean as a tier one esport, like you said. And there's only a handful of people in my time in esports who I would trust with a mission like this. And Panda is definitely at the top of that list. I've grown to know so many people on Panda. A lot of our friends are, entrenched in Panda as well. So it's exciting, as someone who's still, still pretty green, in all things esports, and what the working relationship is like with this big company. It's hard not to be excited. Again, you understand why people are a little tepid about it, obviously, given, piggybacking off of, like you said, what happened with Big House and a lot, and Nintendo's no mod approach. But like you mentioned, the fact that they're also willing to work with Melee, that's a huge step too, because Nintendo makes nothing off of Melee nowadays. So it would have made
Right.
perfect sense for them to just make this an ultimate based thing, sell what's, making you money right now. But the fact that they were able to get Melee involved with that too means that, maybe they're starting to get, like you said, kind of come to their, have their come to Jesus moment a bit, where it's like, we've been ignoring this big part of our community for such a long time. We've been able to generate, these big pop bonuses for our standards, just on the sheer grassroots alone. And, with the help of these, big esports companies that have, like you said, are founded by people who have been there since day one in Smash. So I'm excited, at least, like you said, cautiously, I'm very excited because, what,
Right.
it's very easy, like you said, for this to go south in a very bad, in a way that's not favorable for us. and then we're back at square one. But if it works out, it feels like the sky's the limit at that point. With, like you said, with how Nintendo literally prints money. I've bought the 3DS 4 separate times because I'm an idiot and I keep breaking mine. But that's besides the point.
Mhm.
So again, it's at least, in my opinion, it's a step in the right direction. You're sitting down to get coffee with your estranged father at this point. So let's. I think taking it one day at a
Yeah.
time as we get more details on this, it'll be interesting to see. Again, 2022 is not that far away. We're in the middle of November. Thanksgiving is literally this week. And I keep thinking that 2022, we got like 4 months. No. 2022 we're about 6
Mhm.
weeks away. The PGR comes back in 2022 and all it's going to be, full foot on the gas once January starts. So, maybe we'll get some more news of this by the end of the year, but until then, I will at least watch with, interested eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely plugged in. I want to I want to see it happen. I want to watch the tournaments. I want to be at the tournaments. I would love to work at the tournaments as well. That's
Yeah,
low key one thing I'm a little worried about, bro. Is like, Nintendo has definitely shown like which commentators in the community they like to hire. It hasn't been me yet, and I think who I am and how I operate and stuff is not maybe necessarily their favorite. But I did play the whole ultra clean image and try to be all sanitized in esports for years, and it didn't really get me
Isn't it
anywhere
funny? Because
in their good
just
graces. So,
touch on that real
um,
quick. I remember I was watching. I think Coney was making a video that was like he was like watching one of those like Smash video essays about like, is this the worst tournament of all time? And it was back in like 2015, 2015, 2016, where like we're really trying to hold like buttoned up esports approach. And then I'm trying to like think. I'm just like, when did we just stop giving a shit about that? Because I remember, it's Sunday.
yeah,
Everybody's wearing their Sunday bests. I'm wearing a shirt that's a size too small. I haven't tied a tie in like 6 years. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I look like I'm getting my
mm,
pictures taken at Sears or something. And then we all just stopped.
yeah,
Like, so I'm trying to figure out when we were all just like, fuck it, we're all just gonna start wearing t-shirts with funny pictures on them again. Like, it's like the development of of
right, right.
commentary, like, and of the commentary dress code is absolutely hilarious to me and a marvel.
Yeah, that's definitely like a very low key storyline that probably most people who aren't
But
commentators
now
never
you're all
really
gonna
caught on
notice. Now
to.
you're
But
all gonna
yeah, I
notice when
think
you listen to this
you
podcast.
know, yeah, right, right. But to speak on it very candidly, like I think the era of the E3 Invitational, like the first one for Smash 4, kind of showed people like, all right, Nintendo's watching. They're paying attention. They know who we all are,
Yeah.
even if they're not like interacting with you publicly. Like they are watching the community figures for sure. And everyone kind of wanted to make a good impression and appear hireable and marketable and stuff. So we all started dressing well and, kept very clean public images on Twitter. Um, the E3 Invitational for Ultimate almost like doubled that, like reinforced on it further. And then I think we all kind of just saw Nintendo slink away after that. And it's like, oh, well, they do only know us when they need something or when they want to use the community as like a marketing platform for stuff like E3 and like having an exhibition. So, all right, like maybe the community is just going to stand on its own and that's fine. And we'll just be the natural versions of ourselves, right? Like for me, like after Let's Make Big Moves 2020, I even like got up on stage and like gave a speech about like, yo, like, I've been on the outside looking in on all this shit. Like I said, it's time to do it myself, do it my way. And that's what that event is about. That's what like the EMG events are about. It's kind of like, yo, like this is the grassroots. We built this. Like,
Yeah.
the gloves are off again. Like, now that Nintendo is now formally in the picture again, I feel like since people have kind of taken a step back from being all ultra prim and proper, like maybe the way that say I tweet now is not something that they want to bring on, but like, dude,
It's
they brought
true.
Mango to the Invitational, right? Like, I don't think anything I'll do will ever compare to like how hard Mango goes, and like you got to
Yeah.
just let the people be themselves, right? Like, I think it would be really boring if we got like kind of like the League of Legends commentary desk, right? Where it's all just a bunch of white dudes with comb overs and suits, and like they're
Yep.
very sanitized. That's really the word I'm going to keep going back to. And like Nintendo, they're a company that markets to children and parents and stuff. So I totally understand why they would want that, but at the same time, like even the whole root of the circuit and Nintendo taking any kind of endeavor into esports is like, are you doing it for Nintendo's bottom line, or are you doing it for the community that plays Nintendo games? Which, you know, if you're Nintendo, you want to be making more money, but also you already make a ton, so why not, like, you know, give back to the gamers kind of thing? Like, I still remember, like, back in the day, Nintendo used to kind of be like
Yep.
the company that wanted to give you more, like more bang for your buck. Their games are a little cheaper, their systems are a little cheaper. The games were made with so much love and like kind of like a raw, gritty element to them, but also like cartoony and unique. And they were trendsetters, not followers in any regard, right? So I think, like, I don't know, if Nintendo wants to come out of their shell a little bit more, I think this is a great time to do it, right? Like you do have this young adult audience that does want something a little
Yes.
more, a little
Yes.
less Mickey Mouse. You know what I'm saying? Um, and a little more hardcore. So whether that's, you know, in terms of the gameplay or like the appearances of the community and stuff, I don't know. I think I just don't want the natural vibes of Smash to be
Yep.
sacrificed in the process, right? Like, um, I think one of the reasons Nintendo did stay away from the scene for a bit is like if they even start acknowledging one
Yep.
tournament, you know, they got to start acknowledging them all and kind of like impose their ways on it. And like they want the community to be able to live and breathe on its own, which is good. But we also need the money because like
Yeah.
this is serious business for our players. Like we want them to be able to make
Yeah.
a
No, I
sustainable
I
living
agree
off of it.
wholeheartedly with everything you said. Again, it's going to be an interesting exchange to see how it all goes down. Again, I used to think that no one at Nintendo knows who I am, and then Bill Trinan wished me a happy birthday one year, and I was like, what? What?
Yeah, man. Just a
Hey,
reminder
do
that
you
they're
remember
watching
that
you,
time
bro.
I tweeted a really dumb picture? Me too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, watch the anime titty
Do
retweets, bro, because like, you know, they're coming for you. But yeah, that's kind of one thing I worry about. It's like, you know, the soul of the
yeah,
community can't be compromised in working with Nintendo either. That said, we do have to be good boys and girls to some extent. Like, we cannot be crazy. And you know, there has to be like some level of behavioral standard and kind of like, because I think that's why Nintendo shied away from us for a long time, right? Like, if anything, the Smash community backing us would be a huge liability. Because,
yeah,
like, dude, even last year, like, what if Nintendo was fully engrossed in the community and like the main providers of Smash tournaments,
yeah,
and then all that shit happened last year?
yeah,
Like, that would hurt Nintendo's bottom line. But because they're so isolated, like it's the Smash community, that has nothing to do with Nintendo proper. They're
exactly.
still moving units just fine. Um, so yeah, I mean, it is crazy that they're willing to take this kind of risk on us, even just by attaching the name. Um, I hope we don't disappoint them, but I also hope they don't disappoint us because, like, at this point, you know, um, I'm
Yeah,
tired of
man,
like sitting here with
relay.
my hands out, kind of shit. It's like
Mhm.
Nintendo, you need to buck up, dude. Like you need to ante up, and we need to see that you're like really down for us because we've been really down for you for so many years, and we
Yeah,
just
no,
want a
I don't
little
think
bit of
we're
love
asking for
back.
too much in that regard. And on the topic of
No,
retweets of a
definitely
certain
not.
kind, I remember exactly the last the last, like, it wasn't even crude. I retweeted an anime girl on Twitter because I'm like 21. I'm just like,
Right, right.
yeah, I don't give a shit about my brand yet. Like, what am I doing? I play Sonic. I don't care about anything. So
Mm-hmm.
I I think I like retweeted a
Mm-hmm.
picture, and then like there's a commentator who followed me on Twitter, and then he unfollowed me, and then like tagged me in the tweet, being like, "All right, this is your last warning, Kyle." And I'm just like, "All right, man, I'm done." Like, actually, this time, and I never retweeted an anime titty. Maybe asterisk on that one since. So I'm what let's see, 2021. I'm like 6 years clean anime titty on main. So uh
Bro, don't worry about it, man. Like now, Twitter even
yeah.
snitches on you for liking the anime titty,
Yeah,
so
man. I've
nowhere
seen
is
some of
safe.
y'all hanging out in these spaces, and I'm not quite sure I like that. So, nonetheless, though, it's like we mentioned. At the end of the day, it's an exciting time to be a fighting game fan and a Smash fan. You know, all things considered, too. Like we mentioned, you know, the things are going to get kicked into high speed. You know, starting literally as the new year starts. As we've mentioned, the aforementioned, let's make big moves is right around the corner. So Max, we're you know nearing the end of our time here. First and foremost, thank you again for joining me this week. You were a treat as always. I knew this episode was going to be in good hands and maybe 1 foot, you know, as we're out here. So let the people know at home where they can find you because you are if you're not following Max right now, y'all are fucking up. I'm just saying.
Well, one place you can definitely catch me is at Let's Make Big Moves. It's going to be first weekend of January. That's not New Year's Day. So January 7th to 9th of 2022. It's in Manhattan at the New Yorker Hotel. Prime ass destination, guys. It's going to be a great show. We sold out really quick. So if you can't make it to the event, please watch it on Twitch. You know, say what's up in the chat, drop some pogs. You'll be able to find me there, or at least watch me running around the venue like a madman. And then, other than that, follow me on Twitter at Max Ketchum _ and you can catch me on Twitch at Max Ketchum as well. I'm not very active, but
yeah, and I'll
I'm
put all
around
that
every
stuff
now
in the
and then.
description below. And again, listen, if you guys are missing out on Let's Make Big Moves, y'all fucked up. Right across the street from MSG, and it's right across the street from the Taco Bell Cantina. More importantly, that John. Listen, I died and got
That's the real
reborn
highlight.
in the Taco Bell Cantina. That shit saved my life multiple times. It was a lot of hooting and hollering happening outside the Taco Bell that weekend.
That's what Let's Make Moves is all about, bro. That's what the series embodies. So yeah, guys, the folks over at Even Matchup Gaming, we got some nice treats coming up for you in 2022. Of course, starting with Let's Make Big Moves in January, but we got some other really cool projects we can't wait to share with you guys. You can also catch me fucking up some Nick brackets, but
Dare I say,
get
like,
right back in the lab.
I'll go on a limb and say this: Max is really fucking good at video games. Hot take, kind of a hot.
Hey man, thank you. I'm glad that someone's out here giving me some credit because, like, I see everyone slurping on Void. Who, don't get me wrong, like, we're not comparable. Void's better than me at everything, but we both play a shitload of games. Actually, a lot of the same games. I feel like my career would have been different if I didn't jump off the stage at 10% and kill myself. Game 2, about to 2-0 him at Evo. Like he overtook me as the gaming virtuoso on that day. But yeah, man, I play a lot of shit, and I only play games with the intention of getting good at them and like competing seriously. So it feels good to hear somebody compliment my skills. Most people think I'm just a commentator.
There's just commentators. I'm just a commentator at this point. I've resigned myself to that. My goal is merely just to make your Monday night miserable. If you ever play me in bracket, that is what I exist to do now. You are legitimately like good at everything you touch. So keep up the good work, sport.
Hey man,
now that's gaming. That's what I call gaming.
Keep touching it.
But as always, folks, you guys can catch me on the internet at Koopa NJ across platforms. Got some interesting stuff to announce soon. TM. That's all I'm going to say. You guys just stay tuned to me on social media. I'm on, I stream sometimes on Twitch. I'm going to finish Breath of the Wild maybe this week. Don't hold me to that, but we'll get there eventually. Follow Koop'd Pod on the internet. Like I said, big stuff coming down the pipeline soon. So we're going to have some cool announcements coming up. I got some cool podcasts coming up, for the end of the year. We're talking Christmas specials. We're talking Spider-Man. I'm probably going to watch Cowboy Bebop and hate it. We'll touch on all of that in these upcoming weeks. And listen, everybody, thank you so much for watching and have yourselves a wonderful evening. See you guys in the next episode.